how to stream D&D and lose friends in the process. This is a sad story. When the pandemic lockdown started 2 years ago, myself and a group of friends took the opportunity to play D&D over Discord and Roll20. We had tried playing online in the past, but didn't really get into it. Now, with everyone forced to stay at home, it seemed like the perfect time to give it another go. The party consisted of DM, longtime friend and the forever DM of the group, really chill guy with an aversion to conflict. Rogue, a friend to DM with a kid and a happy-go-lucky attitude. Bard, another friend to DM, rather argumentative and with a dark sense of humor. Druid, a female friend to DM that tried to mediate everything. And Barbarian, myself. Despite having played many RPGs in the past as a group, none of us had tried D&D, so we decided to experiment and see where it led us. The first sessions were a blast. We had known each other for years, and the group dynamic was just as good online as it was in person. Moreover, D&D turned out to be really easy to understand, and Roll20 was intuitive and allowed us to come up with stupid, funny stuff on the spot. This was a light-hearted campaign, and having fun was the most important aspect of the whole thing. And we did have fun, so much in fact that we played twice a week, 3 hours each time. It was awesome. And then something happened. Our DM had been snooping around Twitch and realized that people over there were streaming their sessions. So he proposed we do the same. I was hesitant. I've been known to get into group projects where I ended up working more than my peers. And I knew keeping a channel running was going to require a lot of effort from all of us. How much time do we really have? I asked. DM and Druid were unemployed, Bard had a part-time job, and Rogue and myself had full-time jobs. Rogue was quickly to add, I can only commit to playing. I can't do anything else, with a kid and wife and all. We understood and agreed him being there would be enough. The rest all decided they would commit as much time as possible in order to keep the channel up. Well, as long as we all had chip in, I said, and jumped on. Big mistake. We decided to split responsibilities as follows. DM would be in charge of just DMing, since that was enough effort. Bard would be in charge of everything stream-related, which included broadcasting and platform management. Druid would be in charge of social media and uploading content to YouTube. And I would be in charge of managing the virtual tabletop we would use to play our games. So that brings us to our first big decision. What VTT are we going to use? You notice most people played on Roll20 or something similar, which wasn't really visually engaging. So we went with Tabletop Simulator, which allowed for fully customizable maps with 3D environments and assets. On paper, this sounded great, but with time, we would learn it had some major drawbacks. Since not everyone had money to buy the damn game, Rogue and I split the bill and bought a 4-person pack so everyone could play. Well, all except for Druid, who had a PC from 1998 and couldn't run the program for shit. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Once we all had the software, it was time to start using it, and that's where my job came in. You see, I was supposed to figure out how we could run a D&D game on TTS, which was sort of easy using mods, but also kind of hard. Since most mods had a lot of random stuff we didn't really want or need for our game. So, with some help from the rest of the team, we started the strenuous process of going over the entire list of mods for TTS, which is extensive, checking what would be of use and what wouldn't. After a long time, we finally decided on a table with some 3D pieces, tokens, character portraits, etc. The only thing left to figure out was the map, and oh boy, let me tell you about the maps. There are many map systems in TTS, some with pre-made maps, some 2D, some 3D. But we wanted our own maps to play in, so I became the de facto map maker of the group. This meant I had to create 2 types of maps, an overworld map that would update after each session, as well as session arenas, which were maps of particular areas or zones where most of the battles took place. To say I underestimated this task would be an understatement. I didn't know the first thing about creating maps, much less for TTS, so I had to teach myself everything, from what softwares to use, to how to find images, to how to add 3D assets, to how to create 3D landscapes, to how to import the final product in TTS, etc. It was a painstaking process where I made a lot of mistakes due to ignorance. My first maps looked like shit. They were crude, or didn't load properly, or had some trees upside down, or many other flaws. But surely enough, with enough practice, each one I made ended up looking better than the one that came before. At what time I even grew to like the slow process of creating a virtual landscape. As for the streams, our bard was having a field day coming up with interesting transitions, graphics for stream prizes, music, and whatnot. However, there were 2 issues pertaining to his job performance. First, he was never on time. We had set a schedule beforehand, and almost always, he was the last one to arrive, usually in a hurry. He never explained why or excused himself. Apparently, that's just how he rolls in life. This led to many problems, most notably instability during the stream, because he wouldn't check for latency issues or being connected to the right server, or just having enough RAM to broadcast, etc. We had to shut down the stream many times because of this, which meant less time to play and more time bitching about not being able to play because of the damn stream. Problems with this guy was constant, and even though I asked him many times to arrive before everyone else to make sure the stream was working, he almost never did. This was the first frustration I'd have with this whole stream thing, but it would only get worse from here on. One day, Bard's graphic card just exploded, and he couldn't broadcast anymore. Who would do it, then? DM couldn't, since he was DMing. Rogue barely existed as it was. Druid couldn't run a fucking Doom on her PC. Bard had to play using his phone, which left only me. Thus, I became the person in charge of creating the maps, getting the TTS table online, streaming, and helping the DM in the game. It was a lot, and I became truly stressed, especially when something inevitably went wrong with my PC, couldn't handle all the programs running at the same time. Adding to this was the fact that each map took me around 4 to 6 hours to complete, and then I had to work from 8 to 6 every day, which meant I spent my nights coming up with maps for the next play session, while getting very little sleep, and I was underperforming at my job. I became irritable and grew resentful of the rest of the group, because I felt I was doing almost everything except for DMing, but decided to power through until Bard got his card fixed. He eventually did, after like a month. When he came back, I was relieved to get some of the burden off my shoulders, but soon realized this meant going back to starting late every night, and having bad stream quality because of oversight. We had a couple of discussions about this, but nothing came of it, because since no one was the boss, no one had the authority to tell the rest what they had to do. Even if I was correct in asking him to take time to check the stability before going online, he didn't have to listen to me, so he never did. And I just had to learn to live with a miserable time schedule, which sometimes had us starting even an hour late from the set time. You know why this irritated me so much? Because, unlike him and most of the others, my free time was extremely limited, and having to wait around for him to show up or have him take down the broadcast, to just end up looking at our faces while trying to come up with the witty banter for the chat, simply wasn't how I wanted to spend my Friday nights. At the same time, our DM was starting to show his trademark "I'm getting bored" symptoms. I knew this dude, and I was well aware he had a penchant to start projects and never finish them. I had seen him do this many times before. He would be on top of everything for the first few months, and then, as routine would start to set in, he would lose interest, putting less and less effort into what he was doing, until finally, he would just stop doing it altogether. The way he acted this out on us was simply by canceling the sessions minutes before going on the air, or, on a couple of occasions, canceling while live. Whenever this happened, I became extremely sad and incredibly upset, because this was supposed to be my night out. I took time off my schedule each week to be there to play, juggling life and work responsibilities, which was never easy. And for what? For him to cancel at the last minute because he's not feeling it tonight. So, we're 6 months in, and Bard is never on time, DM is getting bored, and I'm both exhausted and angry. Rogue and Druid, since they have the least amount of responsibilities, are not experiencing any of this, and are more or less spectators to the whole thing. However, it's clear things needed to change, so we meet and come up with the following solution. Instead of playing D&D twice a week, we'll just play once on the weekend, and use the second session to stream random stuff, while rotating the person in charge. That way, we could all try different things. This was a great idea, because it allowed us to do different stuff and not have to depend on the DM so much. Also, it meant less map making for me. During this period, we did many different things. We played other TTRPGs, board games, tried some D&D one-shots, even played with other Twitch personalities, or just hung out and watched old cartoons. However, after a couple of months, it became apparent the issues remained unsolved. On one occasion, I got visibly upset when Druid cancelled a few days before I wanted to try a 4-player board game, which led me to say, "Okay then, we cannot play." Bard understood this as me cancelling the whole session and went on the offensive, accusing me of making unjustified decisions by myself. I explained to him the game I wanted to play required 4 people, and that's what I meant to say. But this dude, he was never wrong, not even when he was. We ended that conversation on a sour note, both of us having said some hard stuff to each other, while the rest just watched in silence. At around the 12-month mark, things started to fall apart for good. It all began when the DM announcing out of the blue that he would end the first session of the campaign before the holidays, so we could all take some time off and see our families. I didn't like the idea of ending the campaign, but understood his reasoning. What I didn't understand, however, was why he decided to pull the plug 4 weeks before the holiday season started. It didn't take me long to realize it was because he wanted to play something entirely different. When I say different, I mean it. We went from playing D&D to Alien. A completely different system in a completely different environment, with even a different VTT. What truly bothered me, however, was him announcing the switch during the live stream, as if it was something we had already decided, without any consultation with us first. I called him out on this, and he, visibly annoyed, had to call a meeting to vote on the decision. I objected, but the rest didn't care. So by popular demand, I accepted to play Alien. The next few sessions were fine, I guess. I didn't like the system, but tried to not make a big deal out of it, because I had my own project cooking on the sidelines. You see, I had always wanted to play Shadowrun, because I love cyberpunk aesthetics, and the whole vibe just makes sense to me. Alas, the Shadowrun system is stupidly complex and obtuse, so it was taking me a long time to absorb the rules and come up with an interesting one-shot we could all try. After months of reading, taking notes, preparing even more maps, creating tokens, writing cheat sheets, and a lot of other stuff, I finally felt confident enough to propose the project to the group. But I sadly didn't get the chance. As per usual, on the day of the next session, the DM informs us he doesn't feel well, so he has to cancel. Okay, nothing new there, just his regular boredom evasiveness. The next session arrives, and the person in charge gives his spot to the DM so he can finish up the Alien campaign. But again, hours before going live, he cancels again, this time with no excuse. When the third time rolls around, I wake up to a massive wall of text on the WhatsApp chat that basically said something along the lines of, "I won't be able to make it tonight because I have a birthday and I want to party. Also, I don't like how the campaign turned out, so I'm pulling the plug on it. Finally, I won't be able to attend any more sessions because I will be leaving the countryside in a couple days with my family. Bye." This shook me. I never expected the DM to simply vanish out of thin air like that, leaving everything inconclusive. I told him a little heads up would have been nice, considering we shared a project and all, and asked him what should we do with the channel. He said we could continue playing without him, or not play anymore. He didn't care. I was fuming at this lack of accountability and nonchalant attitude, like this didn't concern him at all. Like this was an annoyance he just had to get rid of before moving on with his ever so important life. Felt betrayed and tossed aside as if all the work I had put into this project had meant absolutely nothing. On the day he bailed on us, my Steam account showed I had spent over 400 hours on Tabletop Simulator, and that's not even counting the ludicrous amount of time I had spent on other editing softwares. We didn't really know what to do. DM assured us he would return in a couple of months, so we finally decided to keep the channel on hiatus until he came back. I played something while waiting. That's when I made my pitch to try Shadowrun, and the other 3 accepted. During the next 4 weeks, we played a mini campaign with me as DM that ended up being a lot of fun. Maybe because we didn't stream it. However, after 3 months with no news, we decided it was time to meet again, make a final decision regarding the channel. This meeting was the worst of all. DM notified us that he wouldn't come back before 6 more months and that he didn't want to participate in anything roleplay related until then. This angered me, so I told him how shitty he had been by leaving everything so suddenly, and he simply said, "Well, I was burnt out and I couldn't take it anymore, so I just left." This wasn't an apology, nor was it an admission of guilt. He said this as one would describe how the sun irradiates light. It's a fact of life that's beyond any judgment, for it only needed to be accepted. I was baffled by this explanation, but didn't really get much time to retort, because Bard jumped at the opportunity to claim how me bitching about being on time had been massively annoying for him, because he didn't like to think of this as a job. But it was a job, I exploded. At least it was for me. I spent hours upon hours preparing everything for each session, and you didn't even know it. Did you ever arrive at a game where I didn't have a map ready for all of us to play in? No, because I organized my time and made sure to always comply with my responsibilities to the group. I only asked of you to give back the game I gave to you, but you never did. As always, he didn't listen to me. Or, if he did, it didn't really register. He brought up the previous fight about the "we can't play" comment, and Druid supported him, implying it had been because of me that they had all lost interest in the game. Rogue tried to give me some credit, but the others didn't care. They had made their minds, and I was played the scapegoat. Something changed after that meeting. We had previously agreed to continue the Shadowrun campaign, but I didn't really feel like it anymore. I was hurt, angry, and felt I had been gaslighted. Still, since I had already committed to DMing, I swallowed my emotions and asked them their availability for the next session. Began working right away, preparing NPCs for their next adventure, but stopped shortly afterwards, because I only realized Rogue had answered my question with a "I'll let you know," while Bard and Druid said nothing. I decided to resume preparing the session the moment they confirmed their attendance. But 2 weeks went by and no one said a word. I took this as a sign and left the chat without explaining anything, left the Discord server, and deleted everything I ever had created in the Tabletop Simulator. Forever. That was the last time I spoke to any of them. It's been over a year now, and we still haven't seen each other. I don't think we will, if I'm being honest. This whole experience was such a punch in the balls, I don't know if there's anything left to recover at all. If you ask me, we all made mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, that's for sure. Maybe I was too pushy, maybe I took things too seriously, maybe I did more than I was asked for. But at the same time, I was always open to talk about it and improve, if only someone would communicate with me. I don't know what to make of this. There's no happy ending, nor are there any morals beyond be careful who you play with. It was a sad experience that tarnished role-playing for me, and ended up with a broken friendship. Anyway, thanks for reading this, and I hope this might shed light onto what not to do with your own groups. Best of luck out there.